Do I like to listen to music once it's released? I absolutely do. It's basically icing on the cake for me, and it brings back a lot of memories. I'll listen to something from 10 years ago, and it puts me right back in the place of when I was working on it with the people I was working on it with. So it's very special to be able to do that, and I certainly do enjoy it.
Okay, so we have a question as to whether a project coming in at 44 can ship out at 48. You can use an SRC converter to make anything into anything else. You just really have to use your ears and make sure that whatever you're shipping is perfect sounding. So yes, you can do it technically. Would you want to do it? It just really depends if you can work it in your system and in your chain of events to sound good. And that's using an SRC converter. Or to record through the analog desk and recapture it at a new rate. You can do that too.
Is my approach any different when working on film music compared to standard commercial releases? And the answer is no. It really comes down to just bringing the most out of what is presented to you every day. And it really is as simple as that, because it can show up in any certain way. A lot of times commercial releases are very much like film scores. Sometimes they're real orchestral arrangements around a vocal, and it does kind of sound like that. Other times a film score can be all EDM based and more like an EDM record. So there really isn't any rhyme or reason, but I think the question really might be, how do you approach maybe a wide dynamic orchestral score versus a top 40 type pop record? And again, the answer has to do with understanding the dynamic range and how much to introduce in terms of your dynamic processing and how much not to. And that, again, has everything to do with the mix at hand.
Okay, I have a question about what converters we use. We use benchmark converters exclusively. And the other question is, why did we choose them? Well, we auditioned several, and the way that our console is built and designed, that's what sounded the best. And they're a great company, great to deal with, great designers, great customer service, just wonderful to deal with all the way around. I think fantastic sounding converters. But every studio that's wired differently has different gear that sounds good in it. So that's important to note in this. It's that, you got to go with the gear that works for your environment.
How loud do we master to, and what is my target LUFS level? It has everything to do with the mix at hand and the dynamic range of that mix, how it was mixed, how much peak to average ratio is in the mix, and how to respect that, but bloom it further and just increase the musicality in the mastering process. But it has everything to do with where you start, and even before it's mixed, how you combine the elements, how you record those elements, or which elements you pick within the mix to then blend together in the mix, and then have a mastering engineer take that to the end place. Now, what is my target level? It's in my peripheral vision. I'm not looking at that meter, trying to have that meter dictate where I make musical moves. I'm making musical moves, and then I'm glancing over at the side sometimes just to see where I am, but it's not influencing me other than a second check, because if I let that influence me, I'm going to be doing a disservice to the music. It doesn't mean that I don't make loud recordings. We certainly make very loud recordings sometimes, but generally it's because the mix wants that. It's mixed for that, anticipating that type of approach in the mastering process, or at least it's allowed for, and you're only taking steps forward. So there is no target. Yes, -8 is a good place for a lot of music. It's the music wants to be there, but it's not the be all and end all, certainly not. Oftentimes we'll be at -10 or 11, depending on the dynamic nature of the mix. Sometimes acoustic guitar and vocal, based off how it's recorded and how little it's compressed, doesn't want to be louder than -10. But I'll have another acoustic guitar and vocal track where it certainly wants to be louder than that. So at the end of the day, you just want to be loud enough, which means around -13 or louder, even though that's pretty quiet. It just means on the platform it's not going to be turned down. But definitely don't want to go louder than where your musical sensibilities are telling you to go.
Okay, so do we have a frequency analyzer to tell if we have enough highs or lows? Never, ever have I relied on that. It's always the ears. It's always the core of the mid-range, the analog feel of everything, the way the bass supports everything. It's really just the feel of the music that I rely on. It's just ears, and that's how I was trained. I know a lot of people use a lot of different tools, so there's no harm in doing that. It's just the way I was trained, and that's how I do it.